Check. Hello, folks. Welcome. Thanks for attending the talk. We are going to talk about Office 365 Groups REST API. My name is Rohit Nagarmal, and
I'm Nina Arenas, and we are PMs from Office 365.
So yeah, definitely submit an evaluation once you're done. Quickly go over the agenda, what we try and cover today. We'll talk about what is an Office 365 group. I don't know how many of you are familiar with an Office 365 group. It was launched publicly around Christmas, January this year. So some people have had the opportunity to use it. But if not, we will give you a context as to why it is important and also show you in action an Office 365 group in OVA. Then Yina will cover a little bit about the Groups API, the platform on which it is built, how it is useful, how it is unified, and all the advantages of it. And we will then drill down into the individual APIs for groups. So what are the different aspects that you can access within a groups? We'll do all this using some demos, so you get to see how actually, if you wanted to create an app on top of it, how would you go about it? And then we will finally look at a sneak peek as what is coming in the future. A few set of deliverables that we have already lined up. So you know that, hey, we are really committed to making sure that we grow this API. Key takeaways, I think, I would really like that you took away from the session that these are key APIs that will help you build end-to-end Office 365 apps. Think of Office 365 group as a platform. And the second one is that hopefully these APIs are easy. So you take that away, that it's easy to develop against. They are lightweight. They should be quick and easy to learn and develop. All right, so well, we all know that the world is changing, but the pace of change is now faster than ever. We live in a world today where the devices outnumber the people, and they're creating more and more data that we cannot even consume. Technology is leading to disruptions in both our personal and professional lives. All of us have smartphones with apps that we rely on every day to do things which we couldn't imagine just a couple of years ago. For example, coming to this conference, I used Uber to help me get to and from the airport. I just put a post on LinkedIn saying that, hey, I'll be traveling to San Francisco. So a few of my friends pinged me and they said, hey, Rohit, it'll be great to meet you. So I Facebooked and WhatsApped a couple of them to meet them in the sidelines of the conference. So all this is really helping me, better communicate, right? I'm being more efficient and operate more efficiently. Now, all these changes, which we are now so used to and take it for granted in the consumer space, are also coming to the enterprise, where the goal is that the things that people are used to and operate in their personal lives, they want to also do it in the business. Because the value is in creating things, right? And most often, we don't create things alone. We create things together. Now, this chart basically shows you how information flows in the traditional hierarchy and how it flows in a modern world. So, sorry, I think I bumped over. Yep. So in the traditional world, information is flowing in a point-to-point structure, right? It's very controlled, and systems are built to make sure that the information doesn't flow where it should not. Whereas in today's modern world, networks are open and transparent by nature. This helps for information to go from one place to another without having boundaries. And this helps, in turn, employees to learn and adapt quickly. Now, networks are also becoming the way that people organize. So I think of it like a Hollywood model, right, where there will be a bunch of people who would want to work on a project, so they will get the best people together, they will collaborate on a project, they will finish the project, and they'll move on to the next one. And that's what's happening in the workplace today. The talent pool is global. It's estimated that more than 40% of the US workforce is going to be made up of independent contractors and contingent workers, which means that when you want to create a team, you will have to rely on the network to find the right people so you can build fluid teams quickly and then disband them. And that's where Office 365 groups come in. Because the whole goal of the groups is so that we can bring people, applications, and information together. And the idea is so that you can better communicate and collaborate. Let me go over some of the key benefits of an Office 365 group. The main one is that it's a single definition. So there's one definition of it in Azure Active Directory. All different workloads derive from it. So that if you change it in one place, it flows everywhere. It's self-service, which means that anybody who is a user in the tenant can go and create these groups. They can manage it. They don't have to go to an admin for permissions to do this and that. Public by default. This was one of the key design principles when we created groups. Because just going back to the previous slide, the networks are open and transparent by nature. So groups have to be public by default. Now, of course, we understand that there might be cases in which you want to create a private group where only the members are allowed to access the content, so you can create a private group. But even then, they are discoverable. So anybody in the tenant can still find them. Context and history. How many of you here have used distribution lists, like Exchange distribution lists? So they are very popular. They're an easy way to disperse information to a bunch of folks. But one of the key flaws that it has is that there's no context and history. In Microsoft, we have probably hundreds of DLs in which people share tons of information, not only work-related, but there is the MS Dads group, MS Moms group, groups for everything. And what happens is a new person comes in, and they have a question. They ask the same question again because they can't see whether this question has already been answered. So somebody has to keep a compile, and then somebody has to say, hey, this was answered, here is a list. But with a modern group, you have all the information available so that a person who joins will have that information available from get-go. Sharing to non-members, again, a key principle is that not only can you communicate within the group, but if you want, you can forward information to outside preview. Simple to manage both for users and for IT admins. Now this shows you the different building blocks of an Office 365 group. I think of an Office 365 group as a glue that holds various workloads together. So on the my rightmost thing, you'll see the Azure AD, which is the single ID, which defines the group. But from there, hang a lot of different workloads, right? Outlook is conversations. You can have OneDrive for files. You can use the OneNote for single OneNote to manage across all the members of the group. A calendar, so you can have a shared calendar. And the other ones that you see next are all coming soon. In fact, there'll be a bunch of announcements around these just a week from now in Ignite. So definitely stay tuned. And then the final one, ... means there is a lot more. So once you create an Office 365 group, you basically get a set of workloads that you can then share among the people who are members of this group. It doesn't mean that somebody who creates a group is going to use all of them, right? Somebody might just be very interested in the calendar and the conversations, while others might be interested in the files aspect of it. But at least all this is available if you want to. And on the right-hand side, you see apps, which is where we will spend a bunch of time too, because not only are Office 365 groups available to use in existing products like OVA, but you can create applications that can then access all these different pieces and build platforms on top of it. So let me quickly show you how groups look today in OVA. All right. So this is the Outlook Web Access page. You're all, of course, familiar with this because if you have Exchange Online or even Exchange On-Prem, you can go and look at your email. Right next to the email, at the same hierarchy, you see this new thing called groups. And within those, it will show you the list of all your joint groups that you are a member of. You can click the plus. And as I was telling you earlier, right, it's self-service. You can create a group right from here. You don't have to get any special permission. You can choose the group name, define the members in the next step, and go on. And if not, then you can click on an existing group. And the first view you see is the conversation view. So these are all the conversations that are currently happening in the group and the different posts associated with it. So if you want to go and participate in one of the conversations, you can start going and saying, replying, say hi, hello, or whatever. And that conversation then continues. And anybody who is a member of this group, and if it's a public group, then even if you're not a member, you'll be able to see this information. Some other things are that there is a group contact card, which shows you information about all the different aspects in the group, like conversation calendar, members. You can also quickly add members, leave the group if you want. And a similar experience is also available from here, all the different workloads that you can access. Subscribe is interesting. What subscribe means is that if you subscribe to a group, all the conversations that come to this group and the posts that come will also be sent as an email to you. So in case you are interested in keeping tab of a group conversation, but you want to live in the email, then you can still reply and interact with the conversation from there. Let's click on files. So it takes me the OneDrive for Business for this particular group. You see all the files that are listed here. You can click calendar, and it shows the group calendar. This is again the similar experience that you're already used to on managing a calendar. And you can also click on your existing calendar to get an overlay view if you're interested in. One other thing that you can do is you can add items from your group calendar to your personal calendar. So if you clicked on this, see there's a button that says add to my calendar. So if you want to just manage your calendar in which you want to make sure that this event is added, you can do that in one click. Of course, you can create events, update events. One thing you can't do is you cannot decline or tentatively accept events like you can in your personal inbox, because this is a group calendar. This event is not just for you. This is for everybody in the group. So what happens is if somebody sends an event invite to the group email, then it gets automatically accepted. So, but what you can do is you can delete the event. So you can cancel the event and it will go away. What else? Yeah, you have the notebook. So there's a OneNote attached to the group. So if you want to share notes about the project that you're working on, then everybody will get the same copy. They can all collaborate on the OneNote. Come on. It'll come. Of course, you can leave the group if you're a member there. So you can open it in OneNote, or you can view it online. All the different sections and the beauty of OneNote can be shared among all the members. So that pretty much hopefully gives you an idea of what a group is made of, all the different aspects of a group that exists today. And as we saw in the slide before, this list is going to keep getting bigger. So we'll have more and more items show up here, and the list will continue to grow. Now I'm going to hand it over to Yina, who's going to talk about the awesome APIs and how you can leverage those to access all the information that you just saw.
Yes, so thank you, Rohit. Before I dive into the APIs, I'm going to take a minute to talk about the Office 365 platform overall. So for those of you who are familiar with developing against Office 365, we have a pretty open platform in which you can basically develop in the technology that you choose. You can, it can be running under Windows Azure, or it can be running under any other stack that you choose. We also have, because we are, as our CEO said when he took his office, we are a mobile-first and cloud-first company. So our platform is exposing SDKs on iOS, Android, and .NET, not just the typical .NET things that we have been doing in the past. And of course, we have the REST endpoints in which you can go and interact directly with. Office 365 platform also is built on top of standard protocols, for example, like OAuth 2.0, that allows you to do the authorization on all the APIs and has a scope, exposes tightly scoped permissions on top of the APIs to make sure that the applications only get access to the data that the user consents to. So as a developer, you go and select what are the permissions that your API, that your application wants to have, and then on runtime, the user will see a consent flow that will clearly express to the user what are the different set of delegations that the user is going to be given to for this particular app.
That's actually a very important point to note, because if you think about it, we are going to expose from this one unified API a bunch of capabilities, right? which means it is very powerful, but at the same time, you want to be careful that when an app consents to it, that you don't give it everything. You don't give it the keys to the whole kingdom. So you can define that, hey, my app is only going to need group permission or mail permission or contact permission. That way you can secure it with just the granular scope.
Yep. And then we have the data layer. On the data layer, we have all the different services that are underneath the Office 365 umbrella. We have SharePoint, we have Exchange, we have OneNote, we have Lync, Skype, and all of these different services that make these complete experiences for our users. And well as all these APIs are accessible through the individual endpoints on the services, for groups in particular and going forward, the way that we recommend you to interact with this is through the unified API endpoint, which we are launching this week at Build. So with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about this Office 365 Unified API, which is basically a single endpoint into which you can access all the content that is underneath the Office 365. All the different entities like users, groups, files, mail, calendar, conversation, contacts, and more. Even insights and relationships from the Office Graph are available through this single endpoint. From the group's perspective, you can navigate specifically to the group's collection and get access for unified groups to all of this data, rich data that belongs to the group. All of the conversations, all of the files, all of the events that Rohit was just showing in the experience, you can get access through the API to all of that information. So like Rohit was saying before, in terms of groups, there are multiple types of groups that are recorded today in the directory. There are the existing security groups, are distribution groups, and then this new concept of unified groups. So if you go to the API to query to the group's collection, you have to filter for the particular type, using the group type property, to get just the unified groups. These unified groups are the ones that have this rich content data hanging off of them. And with them, you can do all of these different actions, like, for example, all of the management, like adding members to the group, doing the group creation, doing group management for the users, and then also access to the content, access to the conversations, to the events, to the files, and all that. All are available through this API endpoint. So if you're going to build your application that interacts with the group's API, the easy flow to go around it is first, as any other application that is built for the Office 365 platform, you go and register your application on the Azure Management Portal. We will later show a little bit of a demo around that. You can register it either native or web applications. Course is supported in the API as well, so you can do single-page applications. You go and configure the permissions. These are the permission scopes that I was mentioning before around giving the application access only to the specific items that the user wants to consent to. In the particular case of groups, there are two scopes that are important, which is groups.read.all that give you read access to all of the content of the group, and group.read.write.all, which gives you read-write access to the content. Then you use the OAuth 2.0 flow to get an access token in order to interact with the APIs. This flow is basically just an OAuth 2.0 flow, very open standard. But then we have, again, like I was saying before, we have client libraries that allow you to very easily handle this process, just referencing the library, and with 2 lines of code, it takes care of all the protocol handling, and then you can just get your access token really easy. And then on top of the OAuth 2.0 flow, we have OpenID Connect, which is basically a mechanism that allows you to do single sign-on, gives you an ID token with basic information about the user. And you can use this to do the single sign-on, in addition to just getting the token back to access the API. Once you have do the steps that are just one-time only steps, then you can just go and build your application against the Office 365 Unified API and take it from there. So what can we do with the Groups API? Let me start by switching up here.
No, it's on the other one. It's not open. Here. We need to open it. Yeah.
So we are going to start looking a little bit of examples of what can be done with the Groups API. To do that and to help us with this walkthrough of examples, we're going to be using this REST console. In this REST console, we are going to be making REST requests against the API. We're going to be looking at what is the request that is sent, what is the response that we receive. At this point in time, I have to mention that the Groups API is hot off the press. So what we're going to be showing right here is on our pre-production environments. It will shortly roll out into production and be available worldwide for you to access and play with it. But for now, you will just have to look at it from our demo.
No, actually, it is rolling out already, and it's more than 50% deployed. But just that when we created the demos, we did it on PPE. But most likely, if you have a tenant, you might already have it. If not, as you said, maybe in a week or two, it will be rolled out worldwide completely.
OK. So to start getting access to the API, the first thing that we're going to see is the host endpoint, graph.microsoft.com. The next part is the version of the API. In this case, because the API is in preview, we have the beta version. Then we have a shortcut for the tenant. You can either use here the tenant ID, the name of the tenant, like, for example, demotenant.onmicrosoft.com, or the token My Organization. Similar to what we have on tokens around me on other APIs, we have this My Organization token that allows you to access data on the particular organization that belongs to the user that is signed on to the application.
This is actually pretty cool, right? Because you don't need to write, organization contoso.com. You can just use this placeholder to specify that, hey, whoever comes with the sign-in token, because we know in the token who you are, we can replace the organization with your tenant ID.
Yep. And then the next thing is going to the collection. In this case, is groups. And then, but before I go to the groups, I'm just going to quickly show all the things that are supported by the API. Oh, actually, we have it here. I'm going to show the metadata endpoint. Using the metadata endpoint of the API, you can access to all of the different things that are supported. You can see all the different entity sets, the entity types, the properties, navigation properties that are part of the API, all the enums and all the different things. We use the metadata document to generate all of our client libraries for .NET, for iOS, and Android. We use this document to create these preconceived objects in the libraries that allow you to very easily access the API.
Yeah, and the goal of the metadata is twofold, right? I mean, I personally like to look at the metadata just to see what entities are there, what properties are there. But the main idea is that you can point tools to the metadata so they can create serialized objects, right? So for example, if you pointed there are many off-the-shelf parsers available which can parse the OData XML, and they will create the serialized objects. So if you wanted to not wait for a client library, or if you were developing in a language which does not have a client library support yet, for example, let's say Ruby or something, then you can get an off-the-shelf product to create the objects for you. So you'll point that particular tool to this. It will generate the library which will have like group object and the mail object and everything, so that you can easily then call the request and then store the response in these pre-canned objects. Yep. That's one of the main goals.
Even the tools that we use for the generation of our own libraries are open source on GitHub, and then you can use the same tools to generate your own. OK, so I'm going to send out this request to the groups collection. Well, hold on. I need to get authorized first. This console is taking care of the authorization for us. And once I'm authorized and I get an access token, then I'll be able to send a request to the groups. Oh, hold on. We'll just refresh that. Let's try it one more time. Yeah. So I'm going to set the request to the groups collection, and what I'm going to get back is a list of all the groups, including security groups, DLs, and unified groups that belong to this particular organization. But then I was saying before, in order to get the groups that we are interested on for this particular talk, which are the unified groups, I can do things like filter on the particular group type. So I'm going to say group type.
You can see group type is listed as one of the properties in the group object.
Equals unified. So this time around, what I'm going to get is only the groups that have all this rich content associated with it. Only the groups that have the files, conversations, and events associated with them is what I get back as part of the group type equal unified request.
Now note that these are not the groups that this user is a member of. These are all the groups within the organization. So this is very powerful, right? Because the scope that you get is as part of being a member of this organization, you are able to browse all the groups within this organization. So if you wanted to create an app in which you wanted to list all the groups or provide browse or search capability to say, hey, I want to find a group. I know somebody told me that they've created a badminton group or something. So you can use search to find this group easily, and then you can allow them to take action like join that group or look at its content.
Exactly. You want to go back to?
What's the what? So this is actually not a Microsoft tool. It's a third-party company called Apigee. And the reason we are using it is because it provides two things, right? One, it has a good REST Explorer where we can save the queries. Two, it provides access to OAuth implicit flow. So I could.
What's the URL on?
So if you go to apigee.com and when you log in, there is an option there to create a console. So when you go to that console, that's where you'll give your client ID and secret. And once you give that, it knows that when it sends the request, it has to basically.
It's just a simple web application that is allowing us to make the request against the API and showing you the responses that we are the request that we're sending and the response that we're getting back. And then you can do this with several ways. You can do this with Fiddler. You can do this with, there are other tools that we have, like the API Sandbox and our own REST Explorer. But in this particular case, we chose this one because we wanted also to show you, like we're going to do in a few minutes, some of the creation as well. We're going to be making some post requests, and this tool just allowed us to have those pre-configured.
Yep, and it's also very powerful because it shows you that ultimately, these are just raw requests, right? There's no client library, there is no gimmick, right? We are making a call, straight URL, and we make a request with certain headers and certain bodies, and then you get the response. You can decide to do whatever you want with the response, right? It's a JSON response. If you want to just use JS to consume it, you can. If you have a client library waiting for this response, you can do that. But I think this really helps to draw the point that ultimately the calls that we'll go through will be simple web request calls, and the responses will be plain JSON. Can I go?
You're going to go back to that.
Yeah, where is that clicker? Oh, there. Thanks. All right, so next what we'll do is we'll do a little bit of a deep dive into the Groups API. So of course you can do management-related actions, right? So as Gina was saying earlier, you can create groups, you can read them, update them, and delete them. There are two basic entity and collection, a group, which is one individual group, and you can also navigate to the groups collection as she showed, right? When you went from my organization /groups, you were navigating the collection, and when you give an ID after that, then you navigate to a specific group. Apart from the regular CRUD actions, there are a few other interesting actions that you can perform on a group. Remember I showed you about subscription, so you can call this API subscribe by mail, and the opposite of that, unsubscribe by mail. There is also an add favorite method, so you can make this group a favorite. So if in case you want to write an app in which you want to, say a person is a member of 100 groups, right? What is the ordering you want to really give? So if somebody has marked their group as favorite, then you can check that property on the group and say, hey, this group is a favorite of this person, so I'm going to bump this up. And similarly, you can do remove favorite. The other interesting thing is reset unseen count. So one of the things that you will see in OA is that since you last visited, if there are a lot of new messages that have come into the group, then those get added to a particular count. So this is not a group-wide setting. This is a user-specific setting, just like favorite and subscribe. So let's say that I have a group and I'm a member of it, and since yesterday, there have been 20 new posts. So there will be a number called as unseen count on group, which you can access. So if you write an app, you can put that number next to your group, right? And then a person will be able to triage faster and say, oh, this group has had a lot of activity since yesterday. I want to see what's going on here. So then after the person has actually looked at it, your app might want to reset that count, right? Because you don't want to show the number 20 again. So you can call reset unseen count to set that number to 0. It's a global setting, which means if your app goes and sets it to 0, if the person logs into OVA, even there, he will see the number 0. It's not an app-specific number. Again, a person can be a member of many groups, and a tenant can have hundreds and thousands of groups. And the join groups tell you how many groups is this person or this individual a member of.
Yeah, this one is from the specific users collection, right?
Yep.
So once you're in users, you can go to join the groups, and then you'll find out all the unified groups that belong to this, that are part of this particular user, which these users subscribe to.
There's a couple of sample URLs, right? As we saw earlier, from Graph, you can go to the version, which is beta right now. Once we let it bake for a little while, get the kinks out, we'll move it to v1.0, after which you can give the name of the tenant, either contoso.com, or you can give my organization, and then the groups collection identifying a specific ID of a group. So let me show you a couple of sample queries on the groups. So you saw the get unified groups. Let's see the join groups. So if you notice, this is not from the organization, right? It goes from beta me. And what are my join groups?
Me is a token or a shortcut for users / and then the UPN for the user that is signed into the app at that given point in time. So you can replace this with /user/undo@contoso.com,
Yeah.
or just use the me endpoint.
Yeah, something like this. You can say users / this guy is John D. and D. I've not tried this, so it might not work, but Kershaw test 10. Yeah, might have some mistake there.
Yeah, it's too little for me to see with the bright line in front.
It's okay. So anyway, what you notice here is you'll see two groups, right? You'll see that he's a member of Happy Group and Unified Group. If I go back to the OVA, and we look at the groups, these are the two groups, right? So that's exactly what it is showing. It also has some other properties like the email address, display name, and its favorite. Right now this is showing as true. So let's go back and get an individual group. So this is an ID of that Happy Group. So if you notice C7583, let's go back to my join groups. You see here C7583. So this is the group that we want to access.
This is one of the benefits of the API, that it gives canonical identifiers to each of the entities that belong to all of the Office 365 data. So it allows you to reference to that particular entity across all of the APIs. So you go to that particular ID and then hang off all the different navigation properties that belong to that particular member.
Yep. So if you wanted to navigate from one entity to another, the canonical ID help you do that. So if there is a collection of users attached to, say, groups, then you'll be able to use the user ID then to navigate to the user or the member.
Yep.
So we are now looking at this particular group. This has a bunch of group-related properties on it. One of the things we saw was that this particular group was already marked as my favorite. We saw that his favorite was true. So let's go ahead and make this not my favorite. So I'm going to remove favorite from here. So I call that.
Why don't you show a little bit of what is in the body? This is a post request, so basically we're
So the main thing
headers,
here, so the main thing is that we send accept header. You don't need a content type header because the body is empty, but the accept header basically says that, hey, please accept application or JSON. So our request was successful. We got a 200. Now if I go back to my join groups call and see if its favorite property has turned to false or not. There, now it's false. Now let's do a similar thing, subscribe by mail. So if we go back to our Happy Group, we see that this person is not subscribed to this group right now. So because it's telling me, hey, do you want to subscribe? Which means that now if I go back and call subscribe by mail, and says we are successful. I go back to my group, and let me just refresh. Now it says unsubscribe, which means that it has flipped the property, which means that now I'm going to start getting all the email communication that come to this group to my inbox. Of course, I can go and unsubscribe too, again, and it should switch back to subscribe. There's, of course, the reset unseen count that I had showed you earlier. Just, you can see it's just reset unseen count, call that action, and it makes it 0. You can also get to that property by doing a get. So select is a OData query parameter that lets you select individual properties. It's actually a very good thing to do because you want to reduce the workload, right? So you select only the properties that you're interested in, so you don't get the whole object back. So here, unseen count is 0. By default, we give the context and the object ID back. So that is, I think, some of the group management things, right, that we looked at. What's next? So conversations. So similar to management, now when we look at the group content, there are various things. So we talked about conversation events. We'll go through each of them and explain what are the different entities that you can access there. The main one is conversation. The collection of conversation is called conversations. This is a similar pattern that we use in all our APIs. So message, messages, file, files, event, events. So it's easy for you to learn. You don't have to. You can guess, and most likely that will be right. So yeah, in conversations, you can create a new conversation. You can read existing conversations, and you can delete conversations. Conversation can contain threads inside it, and threads can contain posts inside it. And posts can have attachments. Think of it as a hierarchy. Now, one thing the reason we have 2 levels of nesting here, where you can have conversation and thread and then posts, is because in the Outlook world, if you remember, you can thread your view as a conversation view, in which case you will see a conversation, and below which you will see a bunch of threads. And if you click on one of the threads, you will see all the content associated with the thread. Some of the feedback that we have gotten from people already is that, hey, you know what? In my app, I don't really care about having 2 levels of nesting. So in that case, you can just operate at the thread level. So if you see the example below, you can go to /conversations, or you can also go to /threads directly. So that way, it's your choice. You want a 2-level nesting, you can go with conversation /threads, and if you want a single level, you can go just with threads. The main difference between a conversation and thread is that a conversation forks when you change the topic. So if you have a topic of a conversation, and if you change it, then it will not remain the same conversation. And a thread forks when you remove a participant from it. So let's say you started a thread with three members, and then you removed one of the members from the thread, and that will basically fork a new thread. You cannot do the removing of the members using the REST APIs, but because it is supported using Outlook and OVA, we allow you to at least see the thread collection. Another thing you can do is, of course, you can reply to the thread. Replying to the thread means you're replying to the last post on that thread. So think about a thread with a bunch of posts in it. And when you say a thread.reply, it's an easy, convenient way, rather than you trying to find the last post of the thread and then sending a reply on that. You can just say thread.reply, and you'll be able to reply to the last post on that thread. You can also individually reply on a post. So let's say that you're having a communication, and somebody has said that, yeah, I'm going to be here tomorrow. And then after that, 3 or 4 people have posted things. You want to reply only to the third post. So you can choose that one and say reply just to that. You can, of course, add rich data to your posts, like images and stuff. So that's why attachments come in. Now let's see a few conversation APIs. Yep, doing a time check. So conversations, again, pretty simple. You just go /conversations at the end of the group, and it lists you all the existing conversations that are there. So if you see this one, the topic is, this is conversation number 2, and build keynote. So if you go here, 1, 2, 3, right? So it's in the same order that you see there, which is last in, first out. Did I say that right? You can, of course, create a conversation. So the only difference between the last one and this one is that now I've changed it to post. And it's important to see that I have a body now. In the body, you're giving the request payload. So you will define.
You can just send it and then we'll see it here.
Yep. So you'll define that, hey, these are the properties that I'm giving, the topic and the post. The post has two properties, the content type. You can give rich content like HTML, or you can just give plain text. And once you do that, let's say send, then you get the request that was sent and the response. In the response, you get the ID of the conversation that just got created. One other thing I wanted to quickly show you is that, if you take this token, so this is the OAuth token that we got, the access token. There's a site called jwt.caleb.net, in which if you paste this token, it shows you, it breaks open the token, it shows you what is the content inside. So you can see that this token was given for user John D at this tenant, and it has all these scopes associated with it. And this is the token that is sent to the service. And the service takes it and verifies a bunch of things here before it allows access to this request.
Since you open the token, let me make a quick clarification. This particular app that we're using is accessing other endpoints on the Office 365 Unified API. So it's been configured to do read and write on other properties that are for the user. So for the user, you do calendar read, files.read, and things like that. If we're just going to interact with the groups, then you just need the group scopes that we shared earlier in the beginning of the session.
Yep. Where was I? So yeah, so we created a conversation. I think I wanted to, let me create another one with a different title. Too many. Right, so that way we can identify it more easily. I have a bunch of the other ones. So that was okay. So if I now click new activity, there you have it. This is the one that we just created right now.
And then if you look at the body of that request, you can see how easy it is just to pass in the three properties that belong to the creation of the conversation, and it participates right away from the Office 365 experience.
Yep. So now, as I was telling earlier, right, if you don't want to operate the conversation level, you can just do threads. So you can get the threads. It will list all the threads across all the conversations. So you can just, because most conversations will have only one thread, unless somebody forked it from, say, Outlook or something. So you can be pretty confident that if your users are not going to do that, then you can just operate at the thread level. So it also has a property to give you a preview of the last post that was on this thread. So you can create a list view pretty easily. And you can then, of course, reply to a thread. So here I have already identified a particular thread. And then if you notice here, I just add the reply. It's a post request. And with the post request, we need a body, which is the post. So it's like reply from our talk.
And then again, notice we're just posting to the particular member of the group's collection, and then to the reply action with just the text of what we want to reply to, and then we will see it right away.
So that's, again, I think it will show up here. It's still working on it. Come on. Anyway, I will come back to this. Yeah, there it is. So then you will see that here we replied to this post, reply from our talk. That's there. So this is the OA app, but if you had your own app, then you will see the content show up there too. Let me rush. Calendar, the main. So this is very similar to the Me calendar. Like if you are already used to using the REST APIs for calendar in the Me space, then there's not much difference, except that there is only one calendar here. You can have events in a calendar. Events can have attachments. an example of how you can use the calendar. One useful thing to note here is that there is an action called calendar view. So let's say that in your app you wanted to paint a view of a week of this particular calendar, right?
Or
so
a daily. It's defined by the dates,
just
right?
a day or a week. You wanted to just show that these are the events that are going to happen in this group calendar over the week. Then you specify the start date time and end date time, and it gives you the list of items that are there. The reason it is different from /events is that you don't have to worry about expanding master series. So if you're familiar with events in Exchange, you can create two types of events. You can create a single instance event, or you can create a recurring event. So a recurring event would be like, hey, I want a meeting every Monday for the next 3 months. So when you create that, it creates actually one object in Exchange. And it is then the job of the consumer to then take that and look at the recurring pattern and then figure out what does it mean, when does this event occur. And that's just too much for a client who just wants to show the week, right? So that's why when you do use calendar view, you don't have to worry about it. You'll only get single events and you can just post it.
Yeah, so that's a good point. With the /events, you get all the objects. With calendar view, you can get a view of the specific occurrences of those events within a specific time window.
I'm going to spend a little less time here because we are a little short. But this shows you the list of events for this particular group. So all the events that we have. Events are really rich in their properties. You can see all sorts of information, whether they're showing up as busy, all the different attendees, organizer, and a bunch of stuff. And similar to that, if you want to create an event, basically go here and provide the workload.
Just send it and you'll see it here.
Yeah. Our document. And let's put the date as something which is easy to just to find then. I put it as 5/02. 5/02. The dates are in UTC. And I provide a few other properties. Say send. So once it's done, I should be able to, so one is that you'll notice that you get a post on your conversation view that, hey, somebody has created an event, because you're not going to go and keep looking at the calendar, right? So this is your feed. So you look at a feed view and it tells you that somebody has posted an event. And of course, you can go to the calendar and look at that event directly too. So we created in the 5/2, and so it's already there. All right.
And then we get to the group files. So in the group files, we have the files collection that allows you to get all the different members that both folders and files that belong to that particular group. You have full support. You can download a particular file. And on the folders, you can enumerate all the children that belong to that particular folder. Some examples on the files requests, and once I have on a particular group, I can go to /files. I'll see the enumeration of all files and folders that belong to that particular group. And using the canonical IDs, I can navigate to either files or a folder, and I can look at the same properties that are part of the file. And I can even do, because I'm using the unified API, I can go through the fixed relationships that are between the files and the users that have interacted with the files. For example, I can do /files and go to a particular file and go to the last person that modified that file and get the user profile of that person that modified that file. And even further, look at other relationships that user has. Like, for example, look at the manager or the reports and things like that. So I'm going to show some of the file requests. The first one that I'm going to do is I'm going to get the group files. I'm going to the groups collection. I'm going to a particular group. Once that request gets back, I see the list of all the different files and folders. We define the type will define which particular, whether it is a folder or a file. And I get all the metadata associated with that particular item. I can navigate to a specific instance of a file using the ID. So for example, this is a file. This is the ID right here. I'm just going to copy paste it. I can say /ID, and I get the particular instance of that file. And like I was mentioning before, I can just add, it's modified by user, and get by like what is the entire profile of the person that last edited this particular file, which happens to be the Dan Kershaw user. I can do other things on files, like for example, I can create a file. To create a file, I make a post to the group file, to the files collection in the group, and I basically set what is the type of the item that I'm posting, that I'm creating, and the name of it. I can add some additional properties as well, but in this case, I'm just gonna do the creation on, oh, this one already exists. Let's pick another.
Change the,
Another title for that particular file. New file 2. So I've created a new file on that particular group, and I can do other operations like change the content of that particular file. I can create a folder, and the creation of the folder will be the same as the creation of the file. The only thing that I have changed here is the type. So I can create a folder just by saying the name and the type. I can add children's to that particular folder, and can change the content for an existing file, and I can delete the file. For example, I have already, let's see, we had a file here before, and I can change the content. I'm going to say Lauren Bacon is what I want to have on my particular file. I send it, and then it gives me back a 200 saying the content of that file was updated. And the same thing, full CRUD is supported, so I can just change in the HTTP verb. I can set a delete to that particular file item, and then just, boom, the file is gone.
let's keep the app registration maybe. We won't have time probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so next up is we have, just for reference, and common content queries that you can do on groups. Once you get back the recording or the slides, you can come here and look at the different things that we have shown around conversations, events, files, and also the management. We show here in this particular examples how you can use OData operators like $filter, $top, $format, and things like that to do rich operations on top of the data set that you're getting back on the responses. You can select particular properties. You can filter for other properties. You can format the response that you get. You can just select a fixed set of the result using top, or you can navigate to the next page using skip. All of these are supported on the API.
And this is, you can find all the documentation on OData from odata.org. I think personally, I feel like this is really a differentiator, like compared to a lot of other REST APIs around the market, because it provides you a very rich way of actually slicing and dicing the information that you get back, right? So you can do paging, and it's a standard way. Once you know what to do, though it's already intuitive, you can apply the same logic in all the APIs that we have, and you will get the results. All right, so we have 7 minutes. What I want to do is show you an app that we built using these APIs, and we built it on Angular. I had never programmed on Angular before. I found it really easy and exciting because there is no compiling. Where was I? So it's going to run on the Node server. I'm going to start my server.
And then previously for this app, we went through the app registration portal in Azure Active Directory and went through the flow. If you were here yesterday on the session that Rob Howard gave, he showed a little bit of what you do to go to the portal, create a new application, select a couple of things around like the redirect URL, configure whether you want to do single sign-on with the app, and the permission scopes that you want to select. For this particular case, you have, in order to access the group APIs, you go and select Office 365 Unified APIs on the additional permissions that you want to access, and configure the scopes that we have been talking about around groups read and groups read write.
So this app, actually this whole code of the sample app is available on GitHub.
Yep.
There's a link on this slide, so you can download it. It does more things than just groups, so it might be a useful thing if you guys want to play with it. We are going to focus on the groups page. I'll spend a minute explaining what it does, and then we'll look at the code to see how we do it. So it basically goes and grabs your joined groups. It shows you the list of the groups that you have. And then once you select it, as we went through the conversations, event,
Same
and
two groups
files.
that we had before,
Yep.
right?
So, now you can look at the conversations, and then you can look at the group events, and you can look at the files. The files shouldn't be there.
Files are we're going to add in the session.
Yeah, but I think I did not delete it, maybe. Let me check. Yep. Let me go and remove
No,
this.
just leave it. We don't
No,
have-
it's okay. It takes a second. Just want to sure. All right. So let me open the debugger. So if you look at the, actually before that, if you look at the structure, right, Angular is just a MVC web framework. So there is a model, there's a view, and there's a controller. So in our case, our view is the groups HTML. It has a simple structure.
Can you use magnifier?
Yeah, so it has a simple structure where you have the group form, and then it has those 3 tabs, right? So it has the conversation tab, events tab, and files tab. We had the conversations tab and the events tab, and we will create the files tab. Similarly, once you are in one of those tabs, the controller is the one that will get the data required to fill the view. So there are methods like get group calendar or get conversations, and they in turn basically just call a web request called get join groups, which is defined in the web request JavaScript. So if we go back here, I'm going to put a breakpoint in the controller where we call this join groups. And maybe I also can get on the web request. So on the web request, okay, where is the join groups call? There. We put a breakpoint here. We refresh the page, and there we hit our breakpoint. So this is going to make the call to the get join groups. And if you look at the API call that's going to make, it's going to make it to graph.microsoft.com beta join groups. That's the call we were making earlier. And once it does that, you get the groups. It's the same structure that we follow then to get all the other things. So here I've gotten the data value back, and I'm going to assign it to this variable join groups. So if I break this open, I see that there are 2 objects in my array. The first one is the happy group. The second one is the unified group. So if I continue running this, let me just remove this for later. So now if I continue running this, those get populated here. So that the same structure will follow. As I was saying earlier, this is not there, so we'll add this. I will do that right now. So this Atom tool that I was using had a good snippet thing, but it doesn't work for HTML somehow. So I had to cut and paste. So I have my snippets here, in which I have the HTML piece. So I go to my 3rd tab, add this here. Basically, it's just a table. I have the headers, which are name, type, last modified by, and then I have a for loop in which I'm going to get the values from group files, and then iterate over them, fill the name, type, display name, web link. Now I have to define what is group files. So I go to my groups controller, and here I could, I think it was C, there. It's very simple. I am basically making the web request call called get group files, passing the group ID that for which I want to get it. And if it's successful, I'm just storing the return value to this variable. But of course, I have to define the get group files web request. So I go here, and Here's just 2 lines of code. I define the endpoint. So this is http graph.microsoft.com. And this is just /files. I can replace it, in fact, with just files. So I save this, and save that, go back. See, no compiling. Just refresh. And we select a group, go to my group files. I see the header now, and there's the values. So it's as simple as that. There's many samples available for developing AngularJS, so we just used one and modified it to make this app. If you click on one of the links, it takes you to the file directly. You can look at that file too. So that was pretty much it. Hope you guys like that.
Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about the roadmap and what is coming. Like we said, some of the features that we presented today, some of you might be able to get it depending on where your tenant is, but within a few weeks, you will definitely be able to do it. In the roadmap, we have instant-on provisioning coming up, and let me take a little bit of time to explain what instant-on is. Because of the distributed nature of the system under Office 365, when you create a group and the group is created on Azure Active Directory, it takes a little bit of time for that group to replicate to all of the individual systems. So if you create a group through the API, you will not be immediately able to go to the particular endpoint like conversation and start posting conversations in there. There is a little bit of a delay. We're closing that gap, but that's a limitation that we have today. If you wanted to go immediately, then we have to go through the experience of creating the group through the UX, and that actually takes care of that instant-on problem. Yeah. Notifications is also coming. Notification support on top of graph.microsoft.com and for all the entities, including entities and entity collections, including groups. The ability to, actually this one we fixed. The ability to set a group photo, get is already there. We have some amazing engineers back in Redmond that made it happen just yesterday. Yeah. We have also $search support. Our APIs, like for example, the Mail API supports $search, where you can basically do free-form text search on top of the results.
Full text search,
and $search support will come also to the groups APIs. Batching and also adding other entities, like for example, the notes are not available today, but we will be adding notes in the near future. Now, this is a common slide that we've been using around all of our talks in the Office 365 tracks. Basically, jump through those really fast.
I'm being told it's like an Oscar speech here.
Just go to the booth, get your stickers. There's awesome hoodies for you. Sign up for the developer program. There is a 1-year free Office 365 subscription, so make sure you get that. And there's also some other, perhaps like, I think there's a 1-year Telerik subscription as well that they're giving up for free. So make sure you take advantage of all the things that we're giving away in the conference. And make sure also okay, we're going to summarize.
No, we won't spend much time on the summary. Main thing, I just hope that you guys understood what is the group, why it's useful, what is the platform that is going to offer the APIs, and that it is actually simple and easy to use. That's the main thing that I want to make sure people take away. If it's not the case, please come and talk to us, because our main goal is to make sure that you do not require a lot of documentation or inside knowledge to really operate on this. It should be super easy.
Yeah. So if you're familiar with Office 365 development, then you should be able to go right away and start playing with that. If not, then there is the creating and registering your app in Azure Active Directory. That's a one-time thing that you have to do, and then you can, from then on, party with the APIs. We just showed a couple of related sessions that we have both here and Build, and that we were going to be showing in Ignite next week. And then, of course, your feedback is super valuable for us, so take a minute and rate this session. Please. And let us know how we did and what we can do next time to make it better.
Please do that.
Thank you so much, and thank you for joining the session. And if you have any questions, we can take them now.
We can take questions. We have a few minutes, and then, of course, we'll be here. We are also in the booth in the first level. Mm-hmm. So any questions? It might be actually useful for people who are listening to it later. If not, then I'm here. Nina is here. We can also take it offline.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.